Hi, Bio 4. Let's move on to part 6 of spinal nerves. We were talking about a plexus and what a plexus is. So we decided they're a tangle of nerves like this. They will branch out, they will join, they will branch out, they will join, and they form these distinct plexuses. So I'm going to show you some of the ones that you need to know. So just tell you a little bit more about these. These are embryologically fused nerves. So just think of the little embryo developing, and it's a nerve developing, and then it fuses with another, and then it branches out. So this is what happens. Think of it as a braid. So you need to know 4 of these. And they're the cervical, the brachial, the lumbar, and the sacral and coccygeal that we put together into one. So let's look at examples of each of these. It's going to make it more interesting. So in the first, the cervical plexus. This one is formed by spinal nerves that are emerging from all the way from C1 to C5. Okay, so these are in the region of the neck. They're going to innervate the neck and the shoulder. They're coming down to the shoulder. And I'm going to give you an example of one of these. And one of these important ones is the phrenic nerve. And this is a really important nerve because it goes to your diaphragm. And if it goes to your diaphragm, it's going to send a signal for you to breathe. So very important nerve that's part of the cervical plexus. So this is here not because you're going to be memorizing all these branches or any of this, but just get an idea here, big picture of the neck, 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And get my pen back out again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so this is where this plexus is coming from. And the one nerve that I'm going to not have you memorize the structure of, but just a little bit about it, is this one here, the phrenic. Okay, so just know that it's one of the ones from the cervical plexus. And look what it does. Phrenic comes down, 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 and all the way onto the diaphragm. This is the phrenic nerve going up there. And it's going to give the signal to change the size of that thorax so that you can breathe, so that air can come in. The phrenic nerve, very important nerve. Okay, that's all. Now let's look at one example also of one nerve within the brachial plexus. I'm going to give you an example of actually 3 in the brachial plexus that are very interesting ones. So here, this is formed by spinal nerves that go from C5 to C8. And then only one of the thoracic ones, which is T1. And so these are going to be innervating, again, the shoulder. There's an overlap there, but also the arm. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 nerves, the radial, the ulnar, and the median nerve. And they're all nerves that you have felt at some point in your life. You know that they're sending little shocks to you sometimes. So let me show you who they are. Just to get an idea, ulnar is going to be on the side of the pinky. The median is going to be the one in the middle here. So ulnar, median is in the middle, and then radial is on the side of the radius. So it's going to be the side of the thumb. Okay, pinky, middle, and thumb. And that's kind of where they are as they come down your arm. And again, just a picture of them. This is, how they're branching out and joining up together. And this would be the ulnar, the median, and the radial emerging from this tangle of nerves here. Okay? All right. So radial nerve, let's start with that one, the radius. The radial nerve is innervating the posterior surface of your arm, the forearm, and the hand, and all the extensors of the arm and forearm. So you get tingling in your arm because of the innervation to all of this, right? To forearm and arm and front and back of hand, if you hold it up too long. So I have a picture here of people with their arms around each other, right? And these kids here with their arms around each other. And if you've tried that for a while, after a while, you start to feel these pins and needles in the arm. You can't really hold it in that position for very long. And it can lead to a quite serious condition, temporary but serious, called Saturday night palsy. And that is so interesting. I always thought Saturday night palsy was hanging out Saturday night with your sweetie, with your arm around them. And after a while, you felt those pins and needles, and it was terribly painful. It could be terribly painful. But I was corrected when actually it came, the name, you know, where did that name come from? It came from the sort of village drunkard who would not quite make it home and just try and hang on to a neighboring fence or something, and he'd fall asleep in a position like that, hanging on to something. And then the next morning, you pretty much cannot move that arm. So it was called, hence the name Saturday night palsy. And there's a video on that in my external video section that you might want to look at. Very interesting. Very interesting. The median nerve, look at how it comes it comes down the hand. And this is giving sensations to both the skin and the flexors, the muscles of both the forearm and the wrist area, right? So this is the syndrome that you might have felt sometimes, and you wake up in the morning and you have terrible pins and needles on your hand. So if you compress this nerve here, so if you're sleeping on it with your hand flexed over and you stay on it like that for a long period of time, you compress the nerve, and then it's going to start its terrible tingling on you. It's also what's responsible for carpal tunnel syndrome. So what happens there, usually as a overuse injury, where all this region here gets a little inflamed because of overuse. And if you have inflammation there, look at this bracelet here. This ligament, this transverse carpal ligament, contains all this and doesn't let it expand. So if it could just sort of expand a little and spread out when it becomes inflamed, it would be fine. But it has this bracelet that is confining it and pressing it. So when everything else gets inflamed around here, it compresses the nerve. And by compressing that median nerve, you're going to get that terrible tingling in the hand. It can be quite painful. So that is the median nerve that's sort of suffering that compression. And then the last one is the ulnar nerve, the last of the three here. And this is a one that is an unprotected nerve of the human body. It's not deep enough. It's very shallow, and it runs past the ulna, and that is your funny bone. Every time you accidentally slap your elbow on a table or something, or you hit it on an open door, you see stars, right? And that is the overstimulating of that ulnar nerve. It comes all the way down to your pinky. Okay, that's that for that plexus. We're going to move on to the lumbar plexus now. And I'm going to give you again an example of some of these different nerves. So the lateral femoral cutaneous nerve, again, you don't need to know this anatomy here, but you just need to know a little bit about it just to get an idea. What about it? So it is formed by the spinal nerves T12, and then it goes down to lumbar 1 through 4. And what it innervates is anterior, lateral, and posterior. Big area, surface of the thigh. So the thigh anteriorly, laterally, and posteriorly. And this compression of this nerve can lead to something called skinny jeans syndrome. And this is not a joke. This is true. And this is the case where you're compressing it in some way. And one example is wearing jeans that are too tight. And the anterior thigh becomes numb. You start to feel those pins and needles, becomes numb or painful. It's just a sensory nerve, so it's not changing your ability to move the thigh, but yes, that sensation of it can turn into pain comes from compression of that lateral femoral cutaneous nerve. One year, a student asked me, come on, that's a joke, right? In class. No, it's not a joke. It's true. It does have that name. And then last one, sacral plexus, formed by the spinal nerves L4, L5, and then down to sacral 1 and 2. And this is going to innervate hip, thigh, and leg, and the genital region. This one is brutal. This is the sciatic nerve. This is the nerve that gives so many people so much pain because it encompasses such a big area. It's also a gigantic nerve. It's about the size of a pencil, like a regular pencil, and so there's so much activity there. And this whole thing is a sciatic nerve. And notice how it comes down hip and comes all the way down the back of the leg in the sacral plexus. So that pain is going to run from the gluteal region down to the ankle. And where does this come from? Usually that compression is because of a herniated intervertebral disc, or known otherwise as the slipped disc. Sometimes osteoarthritis of the lower spine, and I'll show you some pictures. It also could happen during pregnancy, so there's pressure from the pregnant uterus. It's sort of pushing against that nerve. A more tragic one is the injections of in the wrong area of the buttock. I'll show you that. And the third interesting thing is guys that sit on wallets in their back pocket. So if their wallet is too full of money, right, and here you have this bulging wallet and you're sitting on it all day, it's going to compress that nerve and you could get pain by sitting on too much money. That's what happens. Here's some pictures. Herniated disc. So here's a nerve, one side, the other, and you have a hernia, which means some of this inside nucleus pulposus is leaking out and pushing on the nerve. And now you have compression on the nerve. It's going to hurt all the way from the buttocks, all the way down the back of the leg. In the case of osteoarthritis, you could have this wearing here of this bone. Notice how this isn't, a nice little block of bone like that, but instead it's got these pointy protrusions here, and it could definitely compress an intervertebral disc. If the intervertebral disc then is compressed, this could start compressing the actual nerve, and then you have pain coming from those nerves. And this is an example of an injection given in the wrong location. So this is gluteus maximus. It shouldn't be given in the gluteus maximus. It should be given in the gluteus medius, which is very high up in the buttocks. So that's where it has to be so that you avoid hitting the nerve itself. I'm going to stop right here. This mini lecture is getting long, and then we'll leave very few slides for the last one. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.